You don't know the potential of your beat until Dr. Dre mixes it.
Absolutely.
You just don't know.
Dr. Dre. He's my Kendrick Lamar. Yeah. My nigga Ali. We get ready to mix it up. Beginning of August 2012. Good Kid, Mad City is coming. October 2nd on the road. On the road to Good Kid.
It's safe to say that Dr. Dre is one of the most legendary and well-known mix engineers of all time. The super producer and mixer has had his hands in crafting countless hits for both himself and other artists. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a never-before-seen in-depth look at various tips, tricks, and techniques that Dre used to craft a complete mix, from the start of his process all the way to mastering. One important element of Dre's sound starts with his mix bus, and that is the SSL G-Series compressor on his mix bus, specifically the famous Snake Eyes settings, which gives Dre's mixes and productions a certain envelope and groove.
Seeing him over there hitting the magic button, which is that compressor on that 4000 G.
Jeez.
Getting into more specifics, Dre's mixes weren't just done in the mixing process. Dre layered and crafted each of his records strategically to make sure each sound had space in the mix.
The Chronic 2001, I was listening and you were like, this is the most amazing sounding thing. I'm like, yeah, because Dr. Dre controlled the whole process.
And to give these sounds texture and depth, he relied on certain pieces of gear, which would add character to the sound he had in his head. The most famous example of this is his MPC 3000, which he would use for drums as well as keyboards and sequencing.
So out of his MPC 3000, which was, a certain color, right? And we can even start all the way back at the beginning. He's sampling off of certain vinyl, that's a color. Whatever mixer you use to get into the beat machine is another color. The beat machine itself, and we know Dr. Dre loves that 3000, so that is a color in and of itself, and probably one of the best colors ever of the MPC series, is my personal favorite.
The 3000 was the go-to choice for many producers due to its conversion.
Nothing knocks harder than that MPC 3000.
And I haven't done a session with Dre since Tupac passed away, but I can guarantee he's probably still using the MPC 3000.
From the 3000, there was another layer of color imparted with the SSL G-Series console that Dre was famous for using.
Then that's going to a board. So each one of those sounds is hitting a preamp on an SSL. It's hitting an SSL 4000 preamp.
And when Dre was on the board, he could adjust how hard he hit it to give him a certain distortion and knock.
There's this thing, when you clip that board with your drums, it gives it like a good peak. It gives it like a top end shine that, you can't learn from anywhere else.
And of course, Dre would take advantage of the SSL's EQ.
He'll then walk over in the tracking process and start EQing the snare, EQing the drums, EQing everything else.
While I'm sure Dre's use of EQ is very simplistic and conventional, there is a pattern I did notice. Looking at multiple screenshots of his board, you'll notice that the Q of the low mid and the high mid bands are at the widest. This allows Dre to make significant EQ changes in a short period of time, which shows his simplistic and high speed approach to mixing. Then the final sonic layer of Dre's productions would be the tape machine, which would then impart another color into his mixes.
Then once I have it a way that I like it, then we record it to tape. Now when I'm mixing, do you understand? He's controlling all of these points.
Besides the 4000, there were a few pieces of outboard gear Dre relied on. One of his go-to pieces was the Avalon 737, which is most often his go-to vocal compressor of choice, used as an insert on the board. A common alternative for Dre was also the DBX 160.
My favorite is actually the DBX 160. All my vocals, anytime I record.
Lead vocal.
DBX 160.
The other piece of go-to outboard gear for Dre was the AMS RMX 16, commonly used by Dre on his vocals.
Man, this is my baby right here, the AMS reverb, my main reverb right here. This baby.
Even Dre's proteges follow suit with using this unit.
You were using like on the background vocals and on Kendrick's vocal.
It was a chamber, I think, from an RMS, or was it RMX? It was the chamber setting that we use on that.
The AMS?
The AMS, yeah. The AMS RMS, yeah.
It wasn't ambience?
No, it wasn't ambience.
I was wrong, Nico.
Being the perfectionist that Dre is, no mix call with him was just about the mix. At the ready was his A-list team of session musicians who would replace any part of the song if it was not mix ready.
All he did, I ain't gonna lie, the man had the bass we had. He had Mike Elizondo recut the bass, right? So he had him redo the live bass. So we had a live bass on there.
Okay.
But we ain't going through no we put that shit right on one of them Avalons or one of them shits, and it's like, Dr. Dre's chain be like Fairchild. You know what I'm saying? Like he running that shit to at least 100 bands worth of outboard gear just for the bass. So when that shit goes through the board, it's like monster. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't know what he do, but just know that he had that fucking bass recut.
Now, as important as the gear is to Dre's mixing process, the final step in his chain is the monitoring system and the listening environment he uses. You'll notice that all the engineers who associate with Dre have a common theme, and that's their use of the mono Oratone and NS10 speakers to mix their records. For example, one of Dre's students, Mixed by Ali, is famous for using this mono Oratone technique.
And just watching his process and how he manipulates certain things and use speakers for what they really are, I was able to just trying to find my own niche in it. Like mixing on one speaker, it doesn't sound pretty practical because, you know, a song is a stereo image of left and right. And the reason why I mix in mono, I say all the time, like I use a lot of effects and reverbs and stereo imaging where, you know, sounds are coming from left and right of the speaker. When I mix in mono on one speaker, I'm able to gauge things up and down instead of left and right.
Now, the final and surprisingly important part of Dre's mix process was the mastering phase. Most of Dre's albums, including the Chronic 2001, will go on to become sonic references for their loudness and punch.
Chronic 2001 was the reference for how loud to be.
Yeah.
And it hit -8 on the VU scale. And I thought that was my reference for like 10 years.
In order to achieve this, Dr. Dre hired mastering engineer Brian Big Bass Gardner, who wasn't afraid to break the conventional rules of mastering, even sometimes introducing distortion, in order to get that extra loudness advantage, which would become his signature trait.
Sounded great,
Good
though.
distortion, like Dre distortion.
Yeah.
You know that?
Sounds great.
Brian was his second. There was a couple of guys over there, but Brian was the only one that listened to us and would cut our shit deeper. Because that's
DJ Quick always shouted out Big Bass
Brian
Brian back in the
that
day.
was his shit. That was his dude. That was our dude. Brian would let you sit in the studio with him and let him cut your shit. Bernie wouldn't let you do that. If you got to Bernie wouldn't. You know, ain't nobody sitting in the studio with Bernie. I
hope you all enjoyed that video taking a look at Dr. Dre's mixing process. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.